Welcome to Musician Profiles, celebrating racial diversity, ICSOM's monthly series of short videos to feature ICSOM orchestra musicians of color. I'm Stephen Lafer. I'm a horn player in the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra, an ICSOM alternate delegate, and I'm happy to be presenting these short videos this year. Today, we're here with Barry Perkins, who has been principal trumpet of ICSOM's newest member orchestra, the Pacific Symphony, since 2004. Born in Rochester, New York, a place I oddly know pretty well, he grew up in Irvine, California. Barry has performed with most of the West Coast orchestras and is also an active Hollywood studio musician for films and TV. He also plays jazz, and he's a very busy educator. Most recently, Barry performed for the Kennedy Center Honors. Barry, thanks for joining us.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's get right to the questions. Can you tell us the first time you heard an orchestra and what kind of an impression that left on you?
You know, believe it or not, the first time I heard a professional orchestra was the Pacific Symphony of all orchestras. So, yeah, because we lived in Orange County, and my dad took me to go see an orchestra. At the time, I didn't know it was the Pacific Symphony. I knew it was just a professional orchestra. Later, I realized that was the Pacific Symphony, and just to see it on stage, and because as a kid, you're used to high school bands and marching bands and that kind of thing. You don't get the full effect of what an orchestra sounds like from the audience, and so I think that was probably the first time. My dad was a member. He's a musician by hobby. He's actually a research chemist, and he would come home and do community bands, community orchestras, that kind of thing. But Pacific Symphony was the first professional orchestra that I ever saw, and pretty inspired me. It was 1984. I was 14 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it sort of went in stages. It was the first time I heard an orchestra, and then I didn't really understand what that was about. Until I got to New England Conservatory and I played in the orchestra there. I was like, okay, I'm getting a better idea. And then my first job a year later with the Mexico City Philharmonic, I actually sat in the audience before the audition. And I said, this is incredible. I mean, people get paid to do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, those three events sort of developed my love for the orchestra.
Okay. So you started trumpet at the age of 5, right? Taking lessons from your dad?
Yeah, he, like I said, he was a chemist, and so when he would come home at 5 o'clock, he would practice his cornet, just play songs out of the songbook, and that just interested me. And as 5 years old in that house, we had to play piano and an instrument, and I thought everybody did that. So I said, oh, okay, I guess this is a thing. I play piano, and then I asked my dad to teach me trumpet, and it wasn't until I got into elementary school that I realized nobody else does this. Right. And it was good for my self-esteem because I could do something that the other kids couldn't do. So to this day, I do that with my kids. So at 5 years old, sticking an instrument in their face.
That was my next question. You're teaching your kids trumpet. Serious question. How much trumpet is too much trumpet?
There's never too much trumpet. Come on.
Spoken like a true trumpet player.
And they don't stay on trumpet, which is interesting.
Okay.
My first child is 30 years ago. My oldest is 30, but he was I started on trumpet at 5 years old, piano, and then he met basketball, and then game over.
Sure. Yeah.
Girls like basketball players for some reason at that age. So he pivoted to basketball and never looked back. My middle child, who's now 22, I started him at 5 years old, and he became a drummer. He saw drumline, and it was over after that. Yeah. And then my last child, who's 17, he's actually stayed with the trumpet, which is great. I had one more to go. And so
your last chance.
Yeah, he does all state. He's actually going to audition for colleges this year. He's 17.
Wow. So he's actually going to go into it and play trumpet professionally, hopefully.
Well, I don't know. He doesn't. I told him, I was like, don't go into this unless you love it, because you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared of years or moments of poverty, while you chase his dream. That wasn't really attractive to him.
Sure.
But I don't want to make it all roses and daffodils. It's a lot of hard work. So I think he's going to double major. I think his other interest is business and finance, and so I think he's going to go that route. But it's hard to read a 17-year-old brain. He plays every Christmas time. I have this solo event at the hall, and I had him come on stage with me, and we played a Christmas duet for thousands of people, and he was steady as they go. Didn't get nervous. And I
Great.
was just trying to keep from crying, when he comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. So for yourself, was there a particular moment growing up or an experience that you had when you knew you wanted to do this for a living, playing in an orchestra?
I think it stems to the first question. I just have been involved in music for my whole life since I was 5 years old, and it was something that I could do that nobody else could do. And I really wasn't really good at anything else. I mean, I played sports, I played everything, did everything a elementary school kid could do. But this was one thing that I felt I was ahead of the game a little bit, at least back then. And wow, I was like, well, I could really do this for a living. I saw people on stage when I was a kid doing this for a living, and so I think it just started really early. I don't know if there was an aha moment. Uh, I think meeting my idols over the years, like Wynton Marsalis and people like that, that were my heroes, sort of solidified that idea and that desire in me. But yeah, it's hard to find an aha moment because it's always been part of my life, and I got to thank my parents for that because it was the exposure to classical music and the jazz music was always in the household,
Hmm.
and which I think is important, especially on this topic of diversity in the orchestras. I think it's important that we expose kids and people who don't have access to musicians to this kind of music. Otherwise they won't get it. You
Absolutely.
know,
And if they don't get it, then we don't get any support down the line from those
that's
people.
right. And the kids that's our future audiences. And old money is not going to be there forever.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
uh yeah, just that whole upbringing, just being around music and my dad playing classical and jazz music in the house all the time. uh I wasn't really exposed to the radio till later, till my friends like, hey, look at this song or that song. By that time, I my interest was still already in classical and jazz music, so it helped me filter all of the garbage, if that makes sense.
Sure. So moving from aha moments to wow moments, what's a particular concert or an event with Pacific Symphony that you'll always remember? It just kind of sticks out for you.
um I would say it was 2006. I had been in the orchestra just a couple of years, uh and we had gone on tour, a European tour, and I think the final concert was at the concert house in Vienna, and we played Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet, and yeah, that was just an amazing concert. I mean, because you dream of playing somewhere like that,
Mm,
and especially at that time, I had zero experience in Europe at that time, and just to be traveling and playing and just that whole experience. I mean, Pacific Symphonies, I'm very fortunate to be a member of that orchestra because we're sort of like family. A lot of us do studio work. We also do the orchestra, which the good thing about that is it's not all the time. It's like not there. It's not every day. We have concerts 2 or 3 weeks a month, or 2 weeks a month, and everybody's really, they're good people. So it's like kind of traveling with your family and performing with your
sure.
buddies, and going to war with your buddies, like like to tell my trumpet section. It's great,
Yeah.
and experience all those towns and countries. That was an amazing experience in my life. I'll never forget it.
Was the Vienna concert in the Music Verein?
It was in a concert house.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I haven't played in there. I played in the Music Verein, and that's sitting on that stage and just thinking about who has been there before you.
yeah,
That's pretty awe-inspiring experience.
yeah, yeah. It was that whole trip for me was pretty amazing, and
Right.
there were reviews in the paper that were really positive that mentioned the young trumpet player at the time.
That's
I'm
got
old. I'm old now, but
to.
I
Yeah.
was young back then.
We all were at one point. So getting in the Wayback Machine, if you can go
Right.
back to that young person and give them a piece of advice from when during your student days, what would you tell them?
Something I realized later on in my career is that we're always learning, always learning. I mean, you're never going to master this thing we call trumpet or classical music. I mean, there's always something that you can learn or get grow from. There's people you can learn from, people you sit next to you can learn from. Um, and I think I a few years into my career, I started to realize, I was like, wow, I can really, instead of having a big ego about it, I can really learn from this person. I can really learn from that person. And I wish I could have done that earlier in life, maybe in my high school years, just be a sponge off of every professional or musician that I came in contact with. I remember a story. My teacher at New England Conservatory was Charlie Schluter, and I got the job like 1 year into my schooling there, and so I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, I mean, do I stay here? Do I go do the job? And he says, well, see you later. That's why you're here, is to get a job.
Absolutely.
And one piece of advice that he gave me, and he says, don't go in there thinking that you own the place. You're green, you don't know half the literature, and just latch on to the best musician, whoever it is, latch on to the best musician that you can, and just learn from him, watch him or her, and so when I got there, I did that. I just analyzed the orchestra, and I found him, and he was the principal oboe, and he was just super musical. I mean, the phrasing was I mean, you cry every time he would play. And so I go, okay, there's the guy. Charlie told me to just focus it on him. And then, it was just such a great learning experience, much better than college, because you're playing rep every single week.
Heck yeah.
And I'm like a sponge off of these people that have been there for years. And I think that was a life changer for me, but get back to your question. That's what I would tell my young self, is just don't think you figured it out so soon.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to end it on. Anything else you'd like to share with that you'd like ICSOM's listeners to know about you?
Well, I mean, I'm a supporter of getting music into the ears of the communities that don't have access to us. It's very important. Like, I'm always in the administration. It's like, hey, you take me over there. I mean, put me over there in these schools. So these kids can look at somebody that looks like them actually doing movies and playing in orchestras. Like, I mean, there's like a whole different world that I feel like we could expose them to, instead of a classical music be some sort of foreign entity, that they'll never be able to touch or understand, and then so when I get in front of these kids, I just I make sure, like, hey, look, this is fun, this is amazing, this is music, this is much more than actually what you'd probably listen to the radio, and here's my email. Send them stuff. You just listen, watch it. It's some amazing stuff going on, and the opportunities are there. Just, you got to work hard. My dad always told me, things aren't going to be handed to you. You work hard, good things happen.
For sure.
And that's the bottom line, especially nowadays. Just work hard, and they have, if you're prepared and you did everything that you can to prepare on your instrument, they have no choice but to hire you.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I hope it helps.
That's worth at least 5 cents. Awesome. Well, that wraps things up for us then here. Thanks so much for sitting down with us and letting ICSOM musicians get to know a little bit more about you. Much appreciated.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Bye for now.
Okay. Take care.